Welcome to Eliot Hine TV on Ustream
and the District Knowledge Network.
I'm your host, Azari.
I'm your host, Daly.
I'm your host, Colette.
I'm your host, Camilla.
Did you know Eliot Hine Middle School is a Microsoft school?
Hashtag Microsoft EDU, hashtag Microsoft School.
Continue to tune in within the coming weeks.
We plan to enlighten you on how a Microsoft school will benefit Eliot Hine Middle School.
Joining us is a guest today, Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton.
Our show topic is H.R. 51, the importance of your right to vote.
Congresswoman Norton, thank you for joining us today.
It's a real pleasure to be at Eliot Hine, especially since you're in my own neighborhood. I don't mean the Congress, I mean where I live.
Our first segment is taxation without representation.
You have garnered a record number of 215 co-sponsors for legislation that converts most of the city into a state. When is the House Oversight Committee scheduled to hold a hearing on the D.C. statehood?
Well, as a matter of fact, we're now even beyond 218. 218 marks the number of votes you need in order to pass any matter in the House. We now have 218 co-sponsors. Most bills that go to the floor of the House do not have the co-sponsors to pass. But the leadership knows that they will pass even without everybody having co-sponsored the bill. We work to get actual co-sponsors, and that means that I am confident to say here at Eliot Hine that the House of Representatives will indeed pass H.R. 51 this session of Congress.
You most recently penned a tweet with House Majority Leader Steny H. Hoyer as a co-sponsor for D.C. statehood. How does this partnership mean for residents of the District of Columbia?
It's important that a prominent member of the leadership has actually co-sponsored the bill. Often the leadership doesn't co-sponsor the bill, even when the leadership is for the bill. For example, the Speaker of the House, Speaker Nancy Pelosi, hasn't co-sponsored the bill, but no sooner had Democrats taken over the House of Representatives than she herself announced that she supported H.R. 51, and I trust everyone here understands that H.R. 51 stands for the 51st state. Now, Steny Hoyer is the second in command in the House of Representatives, and he is the man that actually counts the votes and determines whether there are enough votes to go to the floor of the House. Often he does not co-sponsor bills, but he has indeed co-sponsored H.R. 51, I'm very pleased to say.
D.C. residents pay the highest federal taxes per capita in the nation. In your opinion, how can young adults help to make the District of Columbia the 51st state?
How can who?
Young adults.
Young adults? I think young adults can do what everybody else is doing and what you're doing here today. We didn't get here by ourselves. We got here with a lot of help from our own citizens. I think what you can do is very important to say now. You can help us nationalize this bill. What do I mean by nationalizing the bill? Most Americans still do not know that the residents of the District of Columbia pay taxes without representation. They don't even know we don't have full voting rights in the House of Representatives. How could they not know that? Because it is very hard to know what each individual district in the United States needs. For example, if I were to ask anyone here at Eliot Hine, what can you tell me about the 3rd District of Maryland? You would say, what am I supposed to know about the 3rd District of Maryland? That's the way people feel about the District of Columbia. So what I'm asking young adults, like those of you at Eliot Hine, to do is to watch for when we pass this bill in the House of Representatives. And when we do, make sure that you do all you can to use your social media across the country to encourage people across the country to tell their senators, because that's where the bill goes next, that they too must support H.R. 51. So you can be helpful if you use your social media and make sure that you help to nationalize this bill by taking the message national.
In your opinion, does Congress have too much control over the District of Columbia?
One of the reasons that we want to become a state is that Congress does have too much control over the District of Columbia. We struggled to get what is called home rule, that is to say our own mayor and city council and the rest. But the Congress of the United States can interfere with what they pass, and then I have to try to keep the Congress from interfering. They want to attach, what we call attach, or put on to the district matters that they are for. We have a very progressive jurisdiction, and sometimes what we want is not what they want. Well, that's not for them to decide. But they use the fact that we do not have statehood, that we don't even have full control, to try to tack on to what our folks have passed, in fact, to overturn what our folks have passed. Fortunately, I've been able to keep most of that from happening, but the only way to keep all of it from happening is, of course, to become the 51st state.
Now we're going to check in with Kayla at the Eliot Hine news desk.
Welcome to the Eliot Hine Network. I'm your host, Dakayla. Did you know Eliot Hine Middle School is a Microsoft school? Microsoft schools are focused on leading and learning. Eliot Hine Middle School is working to transform education and integrate technology into our classrooms. By joining the Microsoft School programs, Eliot Hine will receive global recognition by being placed on our Microsoft School list. Enroll into a global community of practice which reaches over 1,000 other school leaders. Available for the Microsoft educators community. People finally practice in quarterly global connect calls. I'm your host, Kayla, with your Eliot Hine Network news report. Now I will swing it back to our Eliot Hine Network crew.
We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
This broadcast is being brought to you by Eliot Hine TV on Ustream
and the District Knowledge Network.
I'm your host, Anasia.
I'm your host, Camilla. I'm your host, Chris.
I'm your host, Ashton.
Our show topic today is HR 51, the importance of your right to vote.
Joining us as a guest on the show is Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton. Our first segment was taxation without representation.
Our second segment is understanding Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton.
You are in your 15th term as Congresswoman for the District of Columbia. What lessons have you learned about politics over the years?
I suppose the most important lesson I've learned as the member who represents the least empowered district in the United States, the District of Columbia, is that if you never get up, you can indeed bring home for the District of Columbia many things that it needs. For example, I hope students at Eliot Hine are looking forward to investigating DC TAG, tuition access grants. Now, this is a bill I got when I was in the minority. The Democrats didn't control. And it enables every DC student who desires to go to any state-supported college institution in the United States at low tuition rates, and the District of Columbia or the Congress will pay $10,000 to every student, like all the students here at Eliot Hine, to go to any state-supported institution, college institution, and our students are in all 50 states. So the lesson I've learned is don't think about what you don't have, think about what you need to do to get what is needed for the people you represent.
Before your congressional service, President Jimmy Carter appointed you to serve as the first woman to chair the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. At that time, how did it feel to be appointed by President Jimmy Carter?
Well, the president appointed me at a time when no woman had ever chaired the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, even though its statute, in fact, seeks to bar discrimination against everybody, including women. It was a great honor for me, especially since I had been a participant in the civil rights struggle as a student, and thus to be appointed to chair a commission which is the commission we were struggling to get in the civil rights struggle was a special honor. To see what I had tried to get as a student, got, passed through the Congress, and then to be appointed to head the agency itself.
You simultaneously earned your law degree and a master's degree in American Studies from Yale University. How were you able to keep your eyes on the prize?
Yale is one of the few universities that allows one to pursue a law degree and a master's degree at the same time. I went to Antioch College where most people went on to get the PhD, but I went on to law school. So I was infected with the notion that I would like to have another degree beyond my own degree. And thus, at Yale, I was able to, at the same time, pursue the master's degree and the law degree, and I got them both while I was at Yale.
When people look back in history, how would you like them to remember you?
I dare not instruct people how to remember me. That is up for residents and for others who care to figure out for themselves.
Now we're going to check in with Amari at the Eliot Hine News Desk.
Welcome back to the Eliot Hine Network News Report. I am your host, Amari. Did you know Eliot Hine Middle School is an IB school? The International Baccalaureate IB Middle Years Program, NYP, emphasizes intellectual challenges. It encourages students aged 11 to 16 to make practical connections between their studies and the real world. The NYP aims to develop active learners and internationally minded young people who can emphasize with others and pursue lives of purpose and meaning. I am your host, Amari, with the Eliot Hine Network News Report. Now we'll swing it back to the Eliot Hine Network group.
We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
This broadcast is being brought to you by the Eliot Hine TV on Ustream
and the District Knowledge Network.
I'm your host, Renata.
I'm your host, Camilla.
I'm your host, Jonathan.
I'm your host, Anisha.
Our show topic today is H.R. 51, the importance of your right to vote.
Joining us as a guest on the show is Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton.
Our first segment was taxation without representation.
Our second segment was understanding Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton.
Our third segment is power of being patient.
What advice would you give to the students who are considering dropping out of school?
Well, I don't want to be overly dramatic about this, but dropping out of school, particularly at this time in American history, is tantamount to committing suicide in the workplace. Look at where we live. We live in the nation's capital. The only jobs available here, except perhaps jobs, low-level jobs that don't pay a lot in the restaurant or tourist industry, are jobs that do require at least 2 years of college. I've already talked about DC TAG tuition access grants, which allows anybody to get a college education and have the federal government pay for it. And then we already have UDC here, which is a very low-cost university. Because the federal government is our major employer, or jobs which indeed have essentially come to our city because the federal government is here, that means that if you do not have at least a couple of years of college education or as much college education as you can get, then you will not make a decent living in the District of Columbia. So my advice to Eliot Hine students is don't stop now, don't stop in high school, don't stop until you get as much higher education as you can.
Over the past 6 years, many of my colleagues have taken steps to help push our kids' campaign to interview President Obama. As a member of the Eliot Hine Network and on behalf of my colleagues who stood before me, can you make a call to President Obama on our behalf in an effort to support our initiative for an exclusive interview with President Obama?
Well, I certainly will. I can't make a call. He hasn't given me his phone number. But I certainly will try to be in touch with President Obama, our president who's just left us, to convey your message. You have to understand there is a president of the United States and he doesn't go on television or do interviews very much. When's the last time you have even seen an interview by President Obama? I think out of respect for a president, even a president with which he may be in disagreement, he doesn't usually do that. So I will try to ask him to make an exception for Eliot Hine and your own network.
In your opinion, why should everyone exercise their right to vote?
Particularly if you live in the District of Columbia, it probably is more shameful not to exercise the right to vote than living anywhere else. Remember, the district didn't even have the right to vote even for mayor or city council, and certainly not for any member of Congress. All of your parents and grandparents and great-grandparents had to struggle to get that vote, and even now you don't have the same rights as every other resident of the United States. You are, forgive me, second-class citizens. So exercising the right that you do have, the right that everyone has in the United States to vote in local elections and in national elections, will be part of our effort and of your own effort to move us to full equality with other Americans. So I urge everybody to vote if you don't do anything else in November.
Do you have any final thoughts for the students at Eliot Hine?
I have some final thoughts. My final thoughts is how proud I am of Eliot Hine and your own network. I'm on television quite a bit, and I can tell you that network television isn't any more professional than you. I congratulate Eliot Hine and your own network for your professionalism and for the way in which you have designed questions to get at the real truth from your Congresswoman. Thank you for having me.
Congresswoman Norton, thank you for being a guest on our show.
It is my pleasure. It has been my pleasure.
This broadcast is being brought to you by the Eliot Hine TV on Ustream.
And the District Knowledge Network.
Have a great day.
They look like they argue.